Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Small Business Support Group. It is July the 14th. It's Tuesday. And as ever, let's quickly go through the headlines. Face coverings to be compulsory in England shops. The new rules will apply from the 24th of July. And those failing to comply will face a fine of £100 if the police can find them. Winter wave of coronavirus could be much worse. Modelling suggests there could be a second peak, killing more than 100,000 people in the UK. UK prepares to change course on Huawei. UK government is set to announce the Chinese firm to be excluded from the country's 5G networks. And the UK economy rebounds more slowly than expected. The UK's economy grew 1.8% in May as the lockdown began to ease, less than the economists had predicted. And also, breaking news just announced about 5 minutes ago, Virgin Atlantic lands a £1.2 billion coronavirus rescue. That's going to make people angry, I think. So, good morning to Grant. How are you? And Ben as well. Look, he's here. He's here. He's on his return.
Bring it on, baby.
So, we're going to talk about a few of those headlines that have we've just shown up there because, well, this Virgin thing. Is that correct? Should that have gone ahead? 1.2 billion the governments have paid to support them. Your mic's not on, Grant.
But did it say which government or all government? Because it lands in and out of several bases.
Let's go. Let me have I'll pull it up and I'll find out. Virgin Atlantic. Here we go. It's got to be the UK government, isn't it? Let's have a look. Which
going to set a precedent for other airlines, isn't it?
It is. As part. No, it just says that as part of the government's reforms to enable smoother corporate restructuring. Yeah, it's our government. They're the ones that.
So I wonder how they've managed to decide that Virgin need the money rather than other airlines, because there's a lot of them that are going to be in as equal as much trouble.
Well, it's going to be the roll of the dice, I think, the way this government works.
I mean that's a weird one for me. I just find that quite odd. But is that literally just breaking news now? Is it?
It was literally as we just came on air about a minute before, because I had all my headlines and that just popped up on Sky News. So
right. Maybe there are some governmental retreats on Necker Island.
Possibly. Yeah. Let's just read this. Sky News understands that the airline has secured the backing of key financial stakeholders for a deal, with the company now expected to be among the first users of the new court-sanctioned process introduced as part of the government's reform to enable smoother corporate restructurings during the coronavirus pandemic. So, yeah, the government is involved, but it looks like its stakeholders who are putting up the money, I think.
That also sounds like some legislative changes reference such things as employment, restructuring of employment, and leasing on premises. And they're probably allowed, because if you're a multinational with massive infrastructure debt and compliance restriction, there's probably law stopping you reduce your overhead. So somewhere along the line, they may have introduced new legislation to facilitate reduction of overhead, maybe getting out of commercial premises leases, that type of thing.
Yeah, so I'm just they've just give you a list now. This is breaking as we're talking, because they've just put this up now. Richard Branson's Virgin Group will inject 200 million in cash. Davidson Kemper, a hedge fund, will inject 170 million. And then the two stakeholders, which are Virgin Group and Delta Airlines, they'll be putting in 400 million. And then the rest, I think, is coming from the government in some type of sanctions or debt relief, I think, on there. So it's interesting. It's not so it makes out that it is the government, but it isn't. It's
no, that's a misleading news driving headline. In fact,
it's clearly
you probably find that there's maybe 15% of that which is direct government money, and maybe that's indirectly through national insurance contributions, etc. So.
Well, I mean, that's good. I mean, that's a good way of doing it. I mean, Andy will be happy because he keeps going that we shouldn't be selling off our companies to foreigners, but even though that's his words, not mine. But they've restructured, haven't they? That's basically what they've done.
Yeah.
But I mean, why have no other airline done that? I mean, unless they're really in the problems. Virgin.
So Virgin they've not been making money for the last few years.
So
they have been struggling. The Virgin Atlantic, and when this all first kicked off, and everybody was moaning that Richard Branson should be putting his hand in his pocket, which it looks like he has now, because Richard Branson and his family own the Virgin Group, and the Virgin Group is 50% or 51% stakeholder, I think, in Virgin Atlantic. But yeah, that airline has been not making any money. It's been losing a lot of money over the last sort of 2-3 years. So the pandemic has just killed it. Yeah,
I mean, when I flew out with Virgin last year, I went out with Delta Airlines because it's their partner, and came back with Virgin. So it's obviously Delta are sharing some of the debt there, but why aren't Delta Airlines in trouble as well? This is the thing. Is this mismanagement?
We don't know about the US side. Obviously, one would assume that they've been as hit, if not greater impact, because America closed its borders as with every other country. So maybe we're only seeing the UK side of this story.
Possibly, and I mean, obviously I'm going to say
it's going to depend on the business as well, isn't it? If the business has got a decent balance sheet and they've got enough cash to ride it through, then they're not going to need propping up. But Virgin weren't like that. They were already struggling, so they've just basically taken a bad situation and made it worse, and that's why they've needed it. Whereas other airlines could be. Like British Airways, for example, when all this, I did read up on it, so it's quite rare for me to have this kind of knowledge on something like this.
Roll with it, then. Roll with it.
But I did look into it because I fly with Virgin and British Airways mainly, and British Airways seem to be a lot more stable than Virgin. And didn't realise British Airways are owned by a German company now. I think I remember reading that as well. So they're not British Airways anymore, really. But
if you look at the history of British Airways, though, Grant, they were propped up for best part of 10 years, going back in the 90s and the early noughties. British Airways was a joke in so much as it was constantly hemorrhaging money. It's turned a circle, but. Maybe that's because it changed ownership and became German.
Yeah, maybe.
Ooh, let's not bring that with Andy up. Let's not do that because he'd be very angry at that, wouldn't he? I mean,
he wouldn't drive a BA.
He'll probably correct me on that one. It's probably not owned by Germans after all. But
he'll probably agree with you because he said everything's been sold off. But I mean, American Airlines, not American Airlines, but the airlines in America obviously operate completely different here because they are like buses over there, aren't they, for the internal flights? I mean, if you ever get one of those in-flight apps for your phone and you look the coverage for the USA, it is just thousands and tens of thousands of planes that are continually flying over their airspace.
Interestingly, there was no drop-off in that volume of flight. All the way through. So America did not stop transporting hundreds of thousands of people every single day. I
wonder why the virus spread.
Well, let's just examine the numbers as a ratio to their population. And despite their carrying on as normal, it actually hasn't decimated their population.
No, it hasn't. But they've got such major hotspots, haven't they? Florida is terrible. for cases. Not so much deaths. Have you noticed that across the whole world now that the death rate is nowhere near where it was, but the actual coronavirus itself.
Hang on a minute, Matt. It's not Friday, mate. What are you doing? It's not Friday.
I'm not. I feel like I want to get into it because
brilliant.
It clearly shows.
Let's have a go.
But the thing is, Florida is the old age pensioners of America, and there's a lot of older citizens in Florida, and no one seems to. Their death rate really low. The viruses.
Are you suggesting for just 1 nanosecond, Matt, that somewhere along the line, what we've been told isn't quite true?
Oh, we know that now. We know it's all. I mean, the beautiful thing is, obviously, as I just mentioned in the headlines, the masks are all coming on board here on the 24th of July. 2 days ago, an MP said, "Oh no, we're not bringing it in because the science doesn't say that it's necessary and doesn't do it." That was just 2 days ago, and now suddenly, let's just pick a date out the hat, and that's the day we've got to start wearing masks. And it's fine, and I will wear it. I'll wear it.
I won't go anywhere with a fucking mask on. Not going to do it. There's no shopping. There's no shopping then, because you'll be fined £100. Well, do you know what? Shopping's depressive anyway because of the new restrictions and the fear in everyone.
And the arrows.
Yeah.
The arrows. No. They were speaking to a police person. I don't know what level they were. I don't think they were too high up. But they were talking to them on 5 Live this morning saying, well, okay, so if a shop rings up and says there's somebody here without a mask on, and then they run out the shop without the mask, are you going to find them? Are you going to grab them? Because, I mean, they've been told that the shopkeepers and the staff there can't touch anybody who hasn't got a mask on. So all they can do is report it. And the poor police officer went, yeah, we're not going to catch anybody.
But it's pathetic, isn't it? It's just pathetic. We've got a whole system of decrying numbers and everyone's starting to be released. And then they put another restriction on as if there's still more. It doesn't add up. If they're opening up, why are they opening up if there's still the risk?
Well, I think they're just worried about the second wave, if it ever comes. I know it just said in that in the headlines there that we've got 100,000 deaths could happen in the second wave. And this is the thing now. These numbers have been bandied around. Everybody's going, yeah, this is what happens.
Well, they said in the first wave it could be 250,000. What did we get?
No. To be honest, to be fair to the government, that scientist, that professor, when they were at the podiums, he did say, it could be nudging 20,000 deaths, and which is very sad. And of course, we hit 44,000, earlier this week. So it's, I think that was correct. That was a scientist talking, and he got it wrong, but only a bit more wrong. But 100,000 is just, I don't know. It's just all. There was conspiracy theorists are flying around now, aren't they? They're all happy and laughing. And
I think we've got to pursue this, Ben. We haven't spoken to you for a while, and I'm loving your attitude already, mate.
Yeah, you and I both know that when you start to question what they say, that if they say over here things are easing, so open up, and then over here they say, oh, but you've still got to be 2 meters apart, and I say, but if it's easing, why are you still? These two arguments don't go together.
No. So what's your? We haven't caught up for a few weeks. So what's your take on the whole thing now? Do you think we should just get on with it, go back to normal, and just crack on? Or
I think what we've done is, as if Brexit wasn't enough, we've divided the nation again, and we've now got a whole section of the population that are believing everything they're told because it comes from an official source and now live anxiety and fear. Versus the other side of the population that go, do you know what? Fucking evolution's always got rid of a few. We've got to carry on. And it doesn't matter.
Did you just say evolution always gets a few? Did you just use that line?
Yeah, because let's not kid ourselves. This isn't the first time in mankind's history that there's been an epidemic. This is just first time in mankind's history that we've tried to be in control of it.
No, that's very true.
That's a good perspective.
That is a great saying. I mean, that's perfect for this show today. But I mean, yes, you haven't been off a few weeks, so I mean, how have you dealt with all this? I know you're
Yeah,
angry
well,
because I was speaking to you early. So
yeah. So for the, ultimately, I was going to do a bit of a very open blog today, and I may well later. Mentally, I find this the toughest period of my 56 years on this planet, because I live in a world of real people. I'm not behind a desk, in front of a camera, in front of a computer much of my normal life. I'm the sort of bloke that likes to be in a room and hug people. I want us to be human beings. And yet this inertia in the last 4 months has stopped us and controlled us and oppressed us and suppressed us. And so now we can't go and be. We have to go out there and conform. And I find that devastating, because millions of people like me who are, like hugs, want to be out there, aren't native to computers, are people rather than technology people. It's the biggest shift ever for our brain to get used to, and I'm not coping well with it, because I feel like it's a massive infringement on my civil liberties, and it's detrimental to my mental health.
okay, that's
Wow.
a very strong statement. That is, Ben. It's I'm sorry that it's affected you like that. You should have come on more and spoke about this. No, I understand the reasons behind that. But I mean, with the whole, I mean, with the face masks that are coming on board now, and I mean, I'll talk about that I don't go out, but it's not an excuse not to go out. I never went out much anyway, But even I'm just thinking, is the face mask necessary? Because you're in a shop. I mean, I went to our little Tesco's, as we call it, which Edward's got a little Tesco's, little one, little Metro one. And there's about 4 people in there. You got the staff in there as well. The air conditioning's going, so there's a filtration system happening. Is it necessary? I mean, are there idiots? Oh, well, I'm going to answer my own question here. There are idiots, obviously, who just go. I should have stopped myself then. Who just go about coughing and sneezing without, even if you coughed or sneezed into your hand like that. There are idiots out there who do that blatantly, just coughing and sneezing into the street. And I suppose the mask would protect you from that if you are in an enclosed space. I mean, all it's going to do is actually help people stop getting colds as well. But I don't know if you haven't been on, obviously, when I had my very bad cold, Ben, which was really annoying because I hadn't been out anywhere and I had the worst cold for 2 weeks. So much I had to have a test.
And so let's just pull this apart, because my fear is, and my impact is mental health. All right. I know that physically there is always a germ in the air. Watch out, boys, it could get you. And you could have a mask on, and then the irony is these people that wear a mask to maintain their health and reduce the risk take off the mask to have their cigarettes. Or they take off their mask to drink their 5 pints a day or whatever it is. So, the point is there's total non-congruency of message here. Either you're at risk because in the air there is a germ that will get you. A mask isn't going to stop that. Most masks, and A, they take them off all the while to talk or to drink or to eat or to smoke or whatever. B, they're never sealed around here. So you and I both know that a microorganism in the air that can come in and out with air is going to still come in and out with air. What is the point? I mean, you don't sneeze directly on somebody or spray saliva directly onto somebody. That's a benefit. But the rest of it is totally exaggerated.
Grant?
Do you know what? I tend to agree with, I've referred to a debate that I saw a while ago that had 160 doctors on it. And overwhelmingly, they all said there's no point wearing face masks. Overwhelmingly, they all said we should just come out of lockdown right now because it's futile. And, I've been saying this over and over again, Ben. You know that the statistically, and all I can do is I'm no doctor, I'm no medical bloke. I'm just somebody who wants to crack on with their lives and run their business and have fun and do all the stuff. You know, life's short, isn't it? We want to crack on with it. And I'm looking for answers, and I have been. And what I really want to know is, and the question that I keep asking over and over again about this whole lockdown thing, and hearing, you know, the way that you've been suffering, Ben, it just makes me even more sort of frustrated. Is that I still cannot understand why we've been in lockdown. Nobody, medical or anybody in a government or anything like that, has given me a really good reason as to why we've shut down the world, because what they're telling us is it's because there's a virus and a pandemic that's going around the world killing people. Well, so taking that on face value, I can understand you want to stop that virus, but then when you actually look at the statistics about that virus, for the overwhelming mass majority of people, they either get no symptoms or they get a flu. For a very, very small proportion of people, they become seriously ill. And for an even smaller proportion, they die. The ones that die overwhelmingly have either got underlying health issues or have a low immune system. The number of people that have died that are perfectly healthy is minuscule. It's in the 0.0000% range. Now, those are the stats that I've tried to find the information on and so if somebody wants to correct me on that, I'm all ears. But the point is that this kind of information is quite difficult to find. But there have been so many doctors now that I've seen that have been, sort of arguing this point that we should be protecting the vulnerable. You know, people in care homes are seriously vulnerable because they're all elderly, they've got low immunity, and therefore any kind of virus could be seriously damaging. And what we know about this virus is it is very contagious. And I think that's something that we can be clear about. But what I don't understand is why, if the vast majority of the human population have got absolutely no risk or such a minimal risk of even being seriously ill, what the hell have we just done? Yeah. And why do we continue to do it? I don't understand it. And I wish somebody would just explain that to me, because I just don't get it.
I wish that for once, Grant, with you, that they could give us accurate numbers. You and we all know, and the listeners know, that the numbers. So we all know people who have thought they've got symptoms and they ring up and they describe the symptoms, and over the phone, based on a layman's description of supposed symptoms, they've been classified as, yeah, it sounds like COVID, stay home. We all know that people that have, I know several people who have been ill and have asked to go and get tested, and they've been told, no, we're not doing testing, just isolate. So at no point can I see concrete, verifiable evidence of any numbers. And yet, as you say, they're completely oppressing and suppressing society. There has to be a bigger plan.
You know what, Ben? I don't even think it's a conspiracy theory. I think it's dumb over PC thinking. It's the way that our society is built on fear and fear of being in trouble or getting it wrong. The politicians are being, absolutely battered by everybody, and therefore they don't want to be seen as the people that were responsible for X number of deaths, however many, however those deaths were caused. And so it's because of this blame culture and this whole sort of, I don't think there's any, Illuminati behind it, or because, when you listen to people like David Icke who talk about this bigger picture and these conspiracy theorists that say, oh, it's all because there's this underground, Bill Gates is doing this, that, and the other, and they've been doing it for years. Well, let me tell you guys, if there was some sort of Illuminati, the 0.1% of the richest people in the world are trying to actually get us to do, to be whatever it is that they're trying to, some Orwellian society, they are absolutely useless at it. Because according to the conspiracy theorists, they've been trying to do it for decades, and they've done such a shit job. It is shocking. That such a load of nonsense. It really is. Any of that sort of stuff. Because honest to God, if they wanted to do it, they'd have done it by now, for Christ's sake.
Well, don't call out the Illuminati. You're calling out the Illuminati there,
God.
I think you're right.
But there's no such thing. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And the evidence is everywhere around us.
I agree, actually. But what we've got here then is we've got a culture of nobody actually, you're quite right. They're so scared of you being blamed after there's 1,000 more deaths that they're all being overly precautious. And then they've created a whole generation of people who are now, you walk down the street and they go, oh my God, I don't want to get near you. So we are now, instead of protecting a few lives, what they're now going to do is create the biggest depression that we've had for 40 years, which by very nature will end up with hundreds of thousands of deaths, because suicide and mental health is our biggest issue.
Yeah, it is. And all the, not only that, Ben, I mean, bloody, all the people that have been denied their operations, that, the hospitals have been empty. It's absolutely ludicrous. It really is. And when you look at the death tolls, as I do on the Office of National Statistics, they're not that much higher than normal. They are a bit higher than normal, okay, and they have been throughout the pandemic. And when you take into account the amount of people that have died for other reasons because they're not getting treatment, it seems to me like the proportion of people that have died of COVID is even smaller. And I try and say this without being insensitive, because I'm not a COVID denier. I accept that people are getting this disease, and it is dreadful when they do. But I'm just absolutely convinced that there's a better way of dealing with it, that wouldn't have the knock-on effect that we're going to now be feeling for probably the best part of a decade. That's going to be far worse than any of the deaths that we've seen through COVID.
And I think, hey, here's the thing: if any of us could say, this will wipe out the virus, therefore it's a justifiable action, I think we might swallow the action. But what they're saying is we're never going to wipe it out, because it mutates, and B, it can be transferred and passed all. We can't get rid of it. So we're going to have to learn to accept it. You know what? I just chipped this in lastly before, my father died 10 days ago in hospital from hospital-acquired COVID. It is such a prevalent thing in hospitals and care homes. They've broadcast about care homes. They've kept it quiet about hospitals. But there is a defined official status, hospital-acquired COVID, and we're losing more of our numbers of the COVID deaths in hospitals, not because they had COVID before. My father went in with dementia and a fall. He didn't come out. Now that's not what's hitting the news.
I'm really sorry to hear that as well, Ben. Are you I'm trying to be sensitive about this, but are you comfortable with the idea that, not comfortable, are you a believer that he actually did die of COVID, or do you think he was likely to die anyway? Because he'll be part of the statistic.
Exactly. And we argued that. We actually argued in the hospital. And they said we have to put it on the death certificate because we tested, he got it when he died. 3 days before he died, they tested. And when we went to see him, he was isolated. We had to talk through a wall and stuff. So they are duty bound and bound by law to put it on the death certificate. So it's recorded as a COVID death. What we managed to get them to do was alongside it put dementia and heart issues, because they were the two reasons he'd gone in the first place. But you absolutely completely need to know, and everybody needs to know, the official reporting is skewed and biased and doesn't justify the numbers. Most deaths, as you pointed out, Grant, because the people weren't very well anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. How old was he, Ben? So if you don't mind me asking.
83. But the biggest issue is we've got the funeral on Monday.
Yeah.
And I know that there's thousands of people like me have been to funerals where this ridiculous, oppressive legislation at the moment stopping us be with families, and the ensuing fear that a lot of people live with, and they go, oh, I can't hug, I can't get close. So we've got this extremely challenging emotional mental time of loss being compounded by an over exaggerated fear based on very, very spurious statistics. How can you not get angry at that?
No,
I totally agree. I totally
agree with that.
I mean, there's something that I saw the other day that that ties in with what we've just talked about, is that they were advertising on the TV for a cancer charity, and they said 1 in 2 of us are going to get cancer. 1 in 2 of us are going to get cancer. A fairly high proportion of that, certainly loads higher than COVID, will die as a result of that cancer. That's life, guys. You get shit and you die, and sometimes you can't cure it, Now we got to do our best to protect the vulnerable, and blimey, that's awful what about your dad. But I mean, I'd just be really, it's fascinating how many people have been in that position. And did your dad actually really die of COVID? Do you think he did?
No, absolutely. My sister, my brother, myself, we were there.
Wow.
On the day, and
I've heard that so many times.
He went in with a fall because of his dementia and a massively abnormal heart rate, etc. So he was breathing way too fast, way too shallow, all over the shop. But he'd been a heart patient for many years. The dementia medication doesn't help. And what you get is you drill down to a situation where, and this is where the backlash has to be, we are a society, sadly, where actually amazing numbers of people are on medications. And it's the compound effect of a medication that often needs 3 or 4 sets of medication that depletes the immunity. Our challenge as a race isn't a virus. Our challenge is getting back to being immunity driven.
Well, I'm going to pause it there because we're over our little half an hour slot. But I feel like we were just about to go into a different subject there, which I do want to talk about that at another time, actually, because that is very true about how much medication people have. But yeah, it's quite interesting. It's been a very insightful one. It's a bit sad. Sorry to hear your news there, Ben.
Okay.
But yeah, it is difficult to hear that type of thing. But anyway, everybody, we will be back tomorrow at midday. Thank you very much, Grant. Thank you very much, Ben. We'll see you all very soon.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.